Okay, hello. This is lesson 1, starts with page 4, and it's writing and interpreting expressions. So one thing that's really important to know is the difference between an expression and an equation. So an expression is an example of this right here. It has numbers and operations. It often also has parentheses, but it does not have an equal sign. To be an equation, you have to have an equal sign with something on the other side. So for example, 12 plus 16 is an expression. 12 plus 16 equals 28 would be an equation. So that's really important to know, especially for this lesson and the next, because we are just writing and interpreting expressions, and then we are going to eventually evaluate that expression to make it into an equation. So an expression is a combination of numbers and operation signs such as plus, minus, multiplication, and division. Parentheses show which operation to do first. Examples of expressions are expressions written in words, the sum of 12 and 16. The numerical expression, or the expression written in numbers, would be 12 plus 16. Here's another one in words, the difference of 9 and 4, then multiply by 8. So there's two different ways you can write this expression. You need to have the 9 and the 4, or 9 minus 4, within the parentheses, because it says the difference of 9 and 4, then multiply by 8. So the way it's written in this word form would be right here. Parentheses, 9 minus 4, parentheses times 8. And so you would put those parentheses with the 9 minus 4 before the times 8. However, you could also write it 8 times parentheses 9 minus 4 parentheses, because it doesn't really matter where this times 8 goes as long as you do the 9 minus 4 first, because you have this word then here. And then we've got divide 350 by 3, then add 1. Again, we have this word then in here. So you need to have the 350 divided by 3 in parentheses. Now, you can, the way it's written here is this numerical expression. But it doesn't really matter where this plus 1 goes. You can put it at the beginning or the end as long as you do what's in the parentheses first. So let's go ahead and see if we can interpret some of these expressions in word problems. Lyle bought a ticket to a soccer game for $16 and he paid with a $20 bill. Write an expression to show how much change Lyle received. Write the expression using words, $20 minus the cost of the ticket, or $20 minus 16. The expression using numbers would be 20 minus 16. Lyle's change can be shown by the expression 20 minus 16. Now notice, it does not say solve anywhere in here. So that's a big mistake sometimes 4th and 5th graders make, is they go ahead and they just want to solve for it. But that's not what the directions say. It says write an expression. So the actual answer here is 12 minus 16. So one thing that's really important when you're writing and interpreting expressions is to know all of the words that go with adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So the words such as sum and more tell you to add. Sometimes you'll even hear plus or added to or add, and that tells you you are adding, right? So words that tell you to subtract, you often get minus or the difference. Words that tell you to multiply, well, obviously multiply. Times, often you'll see the product of. And words that tell you to divide, often you'll see divide. You might see equal groups. And then also the answer to a division problem is the quotient. Okay, let's turn to page 5 and keep going. The guided practice. Each box of fruit has 8 apples and 6 oranges. There are 3 boxes of fruit. How much fruit is there in all? Write an expression to show the total amount of fruit. So you have, write the expression in words. We have blank times the sum of blank and blank. So because each fruit box has 8 apples and 6 oranges, you would want to combine that first. So you would have the sum of 8 and 6, and then there are 3 boxes. So it would be 3 times the sum of 8 and 6. Now, what's important here is if you wrote that out as an expression, just 3 times 8 plus 6, because of our order of operations, you would just do that first because multiplication comes before addition in your orders of operation. But in order to answer this correctly, you need to add 8 plus 6 first. So for example, if I just went ahead and followed the order of operations in this expression, I would have 24 plus 6, which would equal 30 pieces of fruit. But if I do it the correct way by putting the 8 and the 6 in parentheses, then multiply by 3, I would have 3 times parentheses 8 plus 6, which if I then went to solve that, 8 plus 6 is 14, and 3 times 14 is 42. So obviously 30 and 42 are much different. So you need to make sure those parentheses go in there first, or you have the parentheses in there, which means you would then do that first. At the shack, it's like a burger shack, 31 burgers are sold in the first hour, 15 burgers are sold in each of the next 5 hours. How many burgers are sold in all? Write an expression to show the total number of burgers. Step 1, write the expression in words. So we've got these 31 burgers that were sold in the first hour. So I'm just gonna jot that down right here. First hour, 31 burgers. And then in next 5 hours, so like second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth hour, this is next 5 hours, only 15 burgers were sold each of those hours, right? Okay. So what would you need to do here? You'd have 31, that's the first hour, plus the product. So instead of saying 15 plus 15 plus 15 plus 15 plus 15, we can do 5, the next 5 hours, and 15. So the expression would be 31 plus 5 times 15. So the expression is 31 plus the product of 5 and 15. So now if you know anything about orders of operations, you don't actually need those parentheses in there, because even if I have 31 plus 5 times 15, I would multiply this first anyways, because I know multiplication comes before addition. But it's always nice just to put those in there just to make sure you know that needs to be done first. So for example, if you didn't do 5 times 15 first, if you did 31 plus 5, you'd have 36 times 15, which would then equal, I have to take my calculator out to make it a little easier for us. 36 times 15 equals 540 burgers. But if I did it the correct way by multiplying 5 times 15 first, that would be, so 31 plus the product of 5 and 15, I would have 31 plus 75, which equals 106. So obviously 106 is much different than 100 or 540 burgers. And that would obviously be important to know, because if you are, this is the correct way, this is the incorrect way. So if you are the manager of this burger place or the owner, and someone was like, yeah, we sold 540 burgers today, and then you looked in the cash register and you're like, well, that doesn't make sense because this is the only amount of money that we have. Or someone's like, oh yeah, we sold 540 burgers today, but you only sold 106. Then you would be like, oh my gosh, I've got to order more food or more meat, more buns, more cheese. And then you would have all this surplus because really you're only selling 106 a day. All right, so some of the practice that you're gonna need to do, I'll go over some of these with you. Is 3 times the sum, or 3 times parentheses 4 plus 2 parentheses an expression. Explain why or why not. So yes, it is. Why? Because it has numbers and operations and no equal sign. When writing an expression, when should you use parentheses? When the operation needs to happen first. Write an expression, the difference between 492 and 389. So obviously the key word is here, difference, which means subtract. The product of 25 and 10, well, you know, this is the key word here, and you know that needs to be multiply. 14 plus the product of 12 and 15. So there's 2 different ways you can write this. Now we've got plus, that's our keyword, product, that's our other keyword. So we have 14 plus the product of 12 and 15. So you could also write this as 12 times 15 plus 14. And like I said before, you don't really need the parentheses for this one because you know in your order of operations you would do 12 times 15 first anyways, then add 14. However, it's nice to just put those in there just so you can really see that would need to be done first. And how do I know that needs to be done first? Because it's 14 plus the product of those. It's not 14 plus 12 times 5, which you would actually end up doing this first anyways. All right, the quotient of 45 and 9 plus 6. So quotient means divide, plus means plus. So if you have the quotient of 45 and 9, it looks like that. And then you would add 6. Now, you don't necessarily need parentheses here, but it's nice to put them in there just to show you know you would do that first. Add 6 and 12, then divide by 2. So this one is tricky. This is, add is your key word, so 6 plus 12, then divide by 2. Now this one you have to put parentheses. It does not work correctly if you don't, because if you write your expression like this, my orders of operation tell me I would do 12 divided by 2 first, then add 6, but that's not what it says. You need to add the 6 plus 12, then divide by 2. So for example, you would get a completely different answer if you didn't have those parentheses there. If I did 12 divided by 2, that would be 6, and then I would add 6, and that answer would be 12. But if I did it with the parentheses in it, I would have 6 plus 12, which equals 18, then divide by 2, which would equal 9. So you need to make sure that one has those parentheses in there. Dinner costs $24. You give the cashier $30. Write an expression to show the change you will receive. So you need to find, if you give the cashier $30 and your dinner only cost $24, you're getting something back. So you're finding the difference between those two numbers. So it would be 30 minus 24. Okay, so hopefully you followed along with this and filled it in as I did. You are going to go ahead and do these on your own. And then when I Zoom with you, we'll go over your answers and make sure you did them right. And I'll answer any questions that you might have.